In the past couple of weeks, I've kind of been changing up my style a little bit with these build videos, going away from these really heavily planted tanks to a bit more of a mix between biotopes and aquascaping. So we already did the South American inspired big shallow with the Pistogramma and the green neon tetras. Recently we did the river style with the celestial pearl danios. And today we're transforming this UNS 30C into a blackwater cube for blue neon rasboras. Now I'd really love to display this cube on our shelf, but that brings us with a few issues. The biggest one being the fact that we don't have space anymore. We already have 5 tanks up and running. So that means that 1 tank has to go. I'm currently still very happy with this one. Still very happy with this one. Happy with this one. Also happy with this one. But I'm not happy with this one. I already mentioned in a previous video that I wanted to start taking this one down. This used to be the blue velvet Shrimpscape. I already moved most of the shrimp out into the new river style scape with the celestial pearl danios. I think there might still be 1 or 2 in here. There's actually still one there on the filter. So I initially set this one up as a high-tech tank with CO2 injection, but after a few months, all the plants had grown in properly, and I decided to try and remove the CO2 and see what would happen. And actually for the first 1 or 2 months, everything was looking good. Plants were still growing nicely, but then after 2 months, the hair grass in the back started to turn brown. And after that, they just kind of started looking a little bit sad. So I could, of course, try to fix the aquascape, add the CO2 back in, get the plants fully growing again. I don't know, I've just kind of lost interest with this aquascape, and I think it's more fun to start something new again. So while we're getting ready to set up this new tank, I'm just going to keep this filter running somewhere else, just so we can keep all these beneficial bacteria alive. And then that way the new tank can get cycled faster as well, Yeah, so this is kind of where my second issue comes in. Some people might not really find this a big deal, but all 4 tanks that we have up and running are rectangular tanks. And then to have a cube there, it just looks a little bit odd, kind of hurts my OCD. Also, this is going to be a natural style blackwater tank, and all 4 of them are like super heavily planted. So it's going to look completely out of place. So I was talking about this with my girlfriend the other day, and she actually came up with this genius solution to put that tank over there in the middle. On the right side, we already have the natural style big shallow, which is also a little bit blackwater, has a little tint to the water. So if we're going to have the cube next to it, it's going to look much more balanced, So we're going to move that tank to that shelf, move the cube to there. I think then we have a nice, just a nice setup. Okay, then that's our tank swap done, looking pretty good. So that's our empty canvas for today. We have a UNS 30C, Twinstar B series LED light, and then the hang on the back filter that I showed you earlier. I'm sure some of you are thinking like, hey Mark, that's a UNS tank. UNS is an American brand, aren't you like in the Netherlands? That's true, I'm still in the Netherlands, haven't moved to the US yet. It's an American brand, but it's actually now available in Europe as well. I got this one sponsored, I got it directly from the German distributor who was importing them. So it's super cool to see UNS here in Europe. Really happy with the quality of the tank, super low iron glass, invisible silicone, and I really like the thick format. It's much thicker than other brands that I've seen so far. So yeah, really happy with this little cube. The only thing this cube is still missing is a background. Now I thought because we're doing a blackwater scape, I'm gonna go with a black background. But because all the other tanks have a white background, I think I'm gonna go with white again. Okay, the background is done, which means that we can now move on to our hardscape. Now, the idea that I have for this little cube is to make like a mini version of the big shallow. The big shallow is South American themed. This is going to be more like Asian themed. I think the blue neon rasboras are from Malaysia. Not sure actually. So this is going to be like Asian themed black water. Now in the big shallow, I've used black lava rocks and centurion wood. I'm definitely not going to use the centurion wood because it gave me a lot of troubles with mold and water clarity and stuff like that. But I'm definitely going to use black lava rocks in here as well. this is actually not your typical black lava rock. This is called relief stone, and it's a bit more dense, a bit more textured than regular black lava rocks. Looks pretty cool. In the back I've just used the regular one, just kind of close the gap because I want to have some Aquasol in the back and decorative sand in the front. Next up, let's move on to some wood. And the piece of wood that I want to use is currently in this tank. Bit of a story here. I've used this piece of wood before in my 10-liter no filter Aquascape, and I took that tank down like, I don't know, 6 months ago, 7 months ago, but I kept the wood submerged in that tank in my window. It was basically like serving as a plant holding tank. So I kept the wood in there because there was a lot of moss on the wood, and I knew that someday I'm going to use this piece of wood again. So I kept it in that plant holding tank, and yesterday I took it out. I dropped it in here because there was a little bit of algae on there, but now the shrimp have cleared it out completely. So now we can take it out and start building our hardscape. Okay, we're making progress. So I moved the bigger rock more to the side and the smaller one in the middle there. So yeah, starting to look good. We're not done yet. I want to close the gaps that you see over there and over there. And I think for that I want to use this stuff right here. This is WIO Druid from WIO. I've used the same stuff in the big shallow as well. So it's the gravel that you see scattered around the base. Yeah, let's see if that looks nice or not. Right, it's starting to look pretty good already. Right now it feels very much aquascaped, and we're trying to go for that natural style, almost biotope style. So I want to add in a little bit more wood in the form of like twigs and branches. For that I'm going to use this stuff. This is WIO Elder Root. So basically just a bag full of twigs and branches. I guess you can go to your local forest and get the same thing, but I have this stuff, so I'm going to use it. Okay, I am pleasantly surprised by how that looks. Those twigs and branches instantly made it look more natural. Of course they're all dry, so we have to glue everything together. I also really like that little gap that we have created here. It's almost like a little tunnel. We have to make sure that we put a plant behind there or something, just to give it more depth even. Okay, while we're waiting for the glue to cure, we can talk about the sand. Yes, we're talking about sand. It's come to this point right now. For the sand, I'm going to use this product. This is WIO Biotope Bed Mere. Not sure how you pronounce that. It's like yellowish sand. Actually, let me open it up so we can see it properly. Here we go. That's what was in the bag. So we have like a yellowish orangey sand. We have some twigs. We have some pebbles, small gravel as well. So it's like a really cool, super natural mix. I used a different bag in the Celestial Aquascape. This one is called the Glacier. So it had like a dark sand, different colors of gravel, different colors of pebbles. So all the WIO products that I'm using for this build, so the Druid gravel, the elderly roots, and this sand, those products are all sponsored, and I'll leave links in the description if you guys want to check it out yourself, buy some yourself. Now before we continue, we do need to wash this gravel because it is quite dirty, it's very dusty. So let's give it a wash and then we can continue. So while we're making an absolute mess of this tank, I want to continue with the substrate in the back. For that I want to use a little bit of old Aquasol. So over here I have the tank that we just took down previously. In here we still have a lot of Aquasoil. And this stuff contains a lot of beneficial bacteria already. So I want to use a little bit of this on the bottom, then cap it with fresh Aquasol, and then we just have a lot of beneficial bacteria from the start. We can get the fish in faster, we should have less issues with algae as well, so let's try that. Yeah, just a little bit, should be enough. Drop that in the back. Maybe we'll do one more, and then we cap it with fresh soil. Okay, I think that's the hardscape, sand, substrate all done. Currently it's looking a little bit messy, so I think I'm just going to fill the tank up with water. I think then we can take a better look at what we're doing, what kind of plants we're going to add. You can also add in the filter. Yeah, let's do that. Right, tanks all filled up, filters up and running. Water is a little bit cloudy though, so let's see if we can clear it up with Seachem Clarity. So we'll add this in, wait a few hours, come back and do the planting. Well, a few hours actually turned into a few days, and it's now been a full week since we finished our hardscape of this cube. That's okay, we're not in a rush. It actually gave me some time to think about the plants for this layout, because it is going to be a black water tank, but I still want some green in there, you know. But yeah, the water cleared up nicely, and I think the hardscape is looking good. It's quite simple. I mean, it's only 2 lava rocks and a couple of twigs, but especially in these black water tanks, you don't really need much more than that, you know. Like, there's no point in going really heavy on the details with the hardscape, because we're going to add floating plants, we're going to add tannins, and then you won't be able to see half of the hardscape. Right, so here's our plant selection for today, and we have a little guest as well. Hello. So we have some floating plants. They've already been inside the tank. We're going to add them back later. We have a few pots of giant hairgrass. It's going to be way too much, but you see how much we use. Then underneath here we have a Java fern, of course. Can't go wrong with a Java fern. This is, yeah, I forgot the name of this plant. I'll put all the names of the plants on the screen as I'm planting them. And then underneath here we have some plants that I basically rescued from the previous tank that was on the shelf. So we have some small crypts, we have some small boosters as well. And we'll just see how much of this we're going to add. Okay, so I'm going to start with the background and with the giant hairgrass, because I'm very curious how it's going to look. So that was just one plug of that giant hairgrass, and it immediately brought the whole thing to life. Let's add in a few more. Let's move on to the Java fern. I've actually split that pot in half, so we have 2 portions. I'm thinking one portion over there on the left side, maybe one more portion behind that piece of wood. Yeah, Java fern looking good. Next, let's fill in the background with more of the giant hairgrass. Moving on to a few crypts. This is the crypt albino brown that came from the other tank. I'm going to place this in, mixed in with the giant hairgrass, so I should be just poking over that lava rock basically. Now I don't really like this gap that we have over here. There's some light coming from there, it just looks a bit weird. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of moss from this aquascape and use that to basically fill up that gap. Should look better. That's a bit better. I think once we have the floating plants in there and once we have the tannins in there, it shouldn't really be that light anymore. Now I think the only thing left to do is to basically plant some small crypts and small boosters in the foreground area. And then I think the planting is done. So I decided not to use this plant anymore. I don't think we need it in here, and also it just looks a bit off. So I think that's the planting done. I'm really happy with that. Looks super good. We just need some little bit more floating plants. We can add them, and then we can move on to creating some tannins. Okay, time to make some tannins. For that I'm going to use this stuff. This is Mulchbed from WIO. It's the same stuff that I used in a big shallow as well. It's basically just a bag full of small pieces of twig, small pieces of bark. So we put this in a small bucket, pour on some boiling water, let it soak for a little bit. I might add in some catappa leaves as well. And then we'll let it soak for a little bit, and then we can add all of it to the aquarium, the mulch and also the tinted water. There's actually one more thing that I want to add to this cube. So a few weeks ago we did the big shallow and I went to my local garden center to pick up some houseplants. I only ended up using this little fern over there, but I bought a few more and I placed them behind some of my tanks. So there's one over there, looks really good. There's another one over there and I wanted to do something similar over here on this little cube. And I found this one and I think this is what people call a photos, I don't know how to pronounce it, but I think this plant should be able to grow from the hang on the back filter. I think that will be pretty cool. It's just a bit of an experiment. So I think I'm just gonna remove all the soil from this pot so we just have the roots, place it in the hang on the back filter and just see if it works. Okay, a few days have passed again. The tank is ready, it's cycled, ready for fish. Actually, I had some troubles finding these fish. I guess it was a little friendly reminder to myself that if I want to set up a tank for a little bit more or a little bit less common fish, I need to find them first before I start the tank, because the tank was ready and then none of the shops in my local area actually had them for sale, so that was a bit of an issue, but I found them. We are back at Utaka. I was actually here a few weeks ago and this store specializes in like more rare fish, so I checked out their website. They have a complete stock list on their website and they said they have some blue neon rasboras in stock. So let's go inside, let's see if they actually still have them. Here they are. So they actually have two types. This is the one that I'm looking for, the Sundadanio axolrodi. And then on top of here, I noticed that they have another similar species. This is the Sundadanio retiarius. Yeah, slightly different, but I think I like the axolrodi better. These have a little bit more blue, it seems. And these fish are actually wild caught. So yesterday I messaged them and said, hey, what kind of water parameters are you guys keeping these fish on? And they're keeping them on reverse osmosis water. I set up the tank with tap water, so we slowly have to change that to reverse osmosis water. So yesterday I already did a water change with pure RO water. This morning I did another one, and I think when I come home I'll do a third one. So hopefully the water parameters will sort of be matching with what they're keeping them here, because they are quite sensitive fish, so we have to be really careful with that. Okay, fish are acquired. We got 10 of the neon blue rasboras. Shall we do a little quick store tour? I'm not sure if everybody saw that other video that I made. Yeah, this store is divided into continents basically. So this area here is pure Asia. It's not the biggest area. The biggest area is downstairs in the basement. But yeah, they have a really good selection of fish from Asia in general. They have a couple of really nice display tanks as well. Lots of Blackwater theme going on here. Huge selection of plants as well. And then if you move over to this side, this is where they keep all the fish from Africa. I guess this is the smallest section of the entire store. Yes, this is all Africa, so of course Lampi Achilles. Of course some Crebensis cichlids here as well. The famous Congo tetras. And then you think that's it? No, there's more. Next they go downstairs. And this is where it's super dark, so it might be a little bit hard to film, but downstairs there's a whole other section. This is all South America. So they have a huge display tank in the center here with discus. And then just a lot of tanks with all fish from South America. Mostly these are the smaller fish. So like the tetras, the dwarf cichlids. And then if you move over to this side, there's another section. And here we have all the bigger South American fish. So like the angelfish, discus fish, big plecos, big cichlids, stuff like that. And a massive shallow display tank here as well. This one is actually going to be rescaped soon. I think it's going to be another Blackwater. Okay, so that's it. Just a quick tour of this store. Definitely worth a visit if you're in the neighborhood. Let me go and pay for the fish and I'll see you guys back home. And we're back home. So currently all the lights on the tanks are actually off. That's because we just had a bit of a heat wave here in the Netherlands. And all these lights together produce quite a bit of heat. So in order to reduce it, I switched to a very short photo period from like 6 AM to 12 AM, just for a few hours. So as I mentioned, I wanted to do one more water change before we start acclimating these guys, because the water parameters are still slightly different. Currently in this aquarium we have a TDS of about 133. And in there it's like 55. So it's almost triple the TDS. I could probably just start acclimating them now and just get them adjusted to a slightly higher TDS. But because these fish are a little bit sensitive, I don't really want to take any risk. And I'd rather just get the water parameters adjusted to what they're used to, you know? So let's just start doing water change and then start acclimating them. Here we go, water change is done. So we are now at a TDS of 76. So that's much closer to 55. I've actually started to drip acclimate them. So I just took a little piece of airline tubing, tied a knot in there, and now it's just slowly dripping into the bag with the fish. And I'm gonna leave it like that for, I don't know, 2-3 hours or so. So just so they can get really slowly acclimated. Should be super safe. And yeah, we'll come back later. Straight away went to hide in the back. Yeah, that was to be expected, of course. Well, let's give them some time to get adjusted. Now, because we did like 3 water changes in like less than 24 hours, we kind of lost the tint to the water. So let's fix that again.